You're in, right? Everybody's in. That's the sentence. Not a pitch, not a prospectus, a sentence tossed sideways across a folding table, landing on you like the decision's already been made and you just haven't been told. You're 19. You've got maybe $2,300 to your name, most of it promised to a car that already smells like the last owner's cigarettes. And your friend, call him Dion, leans in with the face of a man holding a winning ticket who, out of pure love, is letting you touch it. You still don't know what it is? That's the part nobody warns you about, the part you'll skip over years later when you tell this at parties. You almost said yes to something you couldn't have described in one sentence, and the reason had nothing to do with the thing itself. It had to do with the four other guys around the table, already nodding, already in, already spending the money out loud. Sure thing, somebody says, and the phrase does something chemical to a 19-year-old. Sure, as in certain, as in the exact opposite of how everything else in your life currently feels. Here's what the room is built to do, though you don't have the words for it yet. It's built to make thinking feel like weakness. Dion isn't selling returns. Returns are abstract, and abstract is slow. He's selling belonging, and belonging is fast. You're in, right? Isn't a question. It's a door swinging shut, and the only way to keep it open is to step through before you've looked inside. Every beat of the scene is a clock. The guys driving out Friday to get in early, the number that won't be this low next week, the way Dion keeps starting, I'm only telling you because, and letting it hang, so your own brain fills the gap with because you're special. So you do the math you're capable of, which is the wrong math entirely. You don't price the deal. You price the no. Dion's face going flat, the group chat you're frozen out of by Monday, the version of the story where you're the guy who got scared. That cost feels huge, vivid, immediate. The other number, the one bolted to your actual $2,300, stays a fog. And because you can't see a number, you quietly set it to 0. This is the oldest sleight of hand your own mind runs on you. It costs nothing, and it works every single time you let someone else set the tempo. There's a thing I know now that I'd have paid a lot to know at that table. The deal that can't wait is the one designed so you can't think. Real opportunities are boring about time. A real business, a real fund, a real anything is still there Tuesday. It survives you sleeping on it because it was never running on your adrenaline to close. The hurry is the product. When someone manufactures urgency, they aren't doing you a favor with their speed. They're quietly confiscating the one tool that actually protects you, which is a night's sleep and a clear head in the morning. But you don't know that yet. Right now, all you know is the clock. Dion slides his phone across the table so you can see it, a number, a curve tilting the right way, and says, last chance to get in at this level, they close it Friday. Around the table, it starts one after another. Yes, I'm in, yes. The whole circle turns toward you at once, the grin, the ticking, the weight of 5 faces waiting, and your mouth opens before anything upstairs has decided a thing. Before that word gets out, though, one question, and I actually want you to sit in it because the whole story hinges here. What's the last sure thing somebody rushed you toward? And what did the rush cost you separate from the deal? Hold that. Then, if you want to watch this kid learn to tell a door from a trap, keep going. Your mouth is open, nothing comes out, not a yes, not a no, a pause. Half a second long, and it feels like you pulled the fire alarm in a silent building. Dion's grin catches just slightly, and in that catch you register something you won't understand for years. The room hates the pause. The pause is the threat. 5 guys who were loose a moment ago are now intensely interested in whether you're about to make this awkward. I gotta think about it, you say. Comes out thinner than you wanted. Here's what should frighten you if you weren't too busy being embarrassed to feel it. You don't actually know what you'd think about. You bought yourself a night and you have no idea what to do with it. You could stare at that curve on Dion's phone for 6 straight hours and come out no smarter because you're missing the tool, the method, the set of questions to run the thing through. You're a kid holding a lock and no key, announcing to everyone that you'd like a moment to inspect the lock. That's the real trouble in this scene, and it was never the deal. It's you, empty-handed, at the precise moment the stakes climbed, because this is your first. The first real money decision of your life. You've got nothing to weigh it against, no scar tissue, no priors. At 40, When someone pitches you, you're carrying 20 years of pattern. This smells like that thing that fell apart in 2019. At 19, the folder's empty, and every con ever built was built for the guy with the empty folder because he can't tell an amazing opportunity from an amazing story, and those two sound identical right up until the money's gone. You'd think you'd have someone to ask, and almost you do. Because sitting 3 feet away, not even in the conversation, hunched over a paper plate, is Marcus. Marcus is a year older. 2 years back, Marcus was you. Same table, different sure thing, the same warm certainty from some other guy who's nowhere to be found now. You know the outline the way everyone knows it, the way a group knows the thing it agrees not to say. He put in $6,000. Not all his. Some borrowed from an uncle, the kind of loan that turns one specific Thanksgiving cold and keeps it that way. The sure thing did what they do, and the figure trailing Marcus around isn't $6,000. It's the interest, the years. The quiet monthly reminder that a 30-second yes at a folding table is still getting paid down in his mid-20s. Without meaning to, you run it. $6,000 plus an uncle's terms, plus 2 years of never quite catching up, and you land somewhere past $9,000, and that's before the part with no number on it, which is that Marcus doesn't take a chair at these tables anymore. He came for the pizza. He paid full price for the lesson. Nobody looks at Marcus. That's the signal. The room has silently agreed not to notice that last year's true believer is right there, thinner now, eating quietly. Dion isn't cruel about it. He's just moved on, the way these rooms always move on, because the pitch only works if last year's version stays out of frame. And now you feel the thing underneath the embarrassment. The most expensive word at 19 is yes, said to look brave. Marcus said it to look brave. You almost did. But the bravery's counterfeit. It's the most frightened move in the room, wearing the costume of the boldest one, because saying yes to end your own discomfort is just cowardice with better posture. The actual nerve was the pause, the one you're currently apologizing for. You go home. You sit on the edge of the bed with Dion's screenshot lit up, that curve glowing, Friday leaning on you. And it lands. The pause bought you nothing. You're looking at the identical fog you were looking at across the table, only now it's quieter and it's yours. You've got until Friday. You've got a friend still bleeding from his own yes, and you have no idea what question to even ask first. How do you tell a real chance from a trap when nobody ever taught you how, and the only person in the room who could is the one everybody's pretending not to see? So you do the last thing left. You text Marcus, not Dion, Marcus. Can I ask you something dumb? He answers in about 4 seconds, and that speed tells you he's been waiting 2 years for someone to ask him before instead of after. He doesn't tell you whether the deal's good. First surprise. You wanted a verdict, do it, don't. And instead he hands you something better and far more irritating, a way to look. I can't tell you if it's real, he types. I couldn't tell with mine either. That was the whole problem, but there's 4 questions. Fail anyone and you already know. 4 questions. You grab a pen in the back of an old receipt because at 19 you write the important things on garbage. 1. Is it too good to be true? Not as a feeling, as arithmetic. What's the promised reward and what's the promised risk? Marcus makes you say Dion's pitch out loud, stripped of the grin. Double your money by spring, basically no way to lose. Written down, it looks unhinged in a way it never did across the table. Because here's the thing Marcus drops, flat and casual. The entire machine of investing runs on one trade. More upside always costs more risk, no exceptions. That's simply the price of admission. Low risk pays you a little, big reward charges you a large pile of maybe. Anyone promising big reward and low risk in the same breath is either wrong or lying, and the market has never once handed out a free lunch, so it's lying. Huge returns, no downside, isn't an opportunity. It's the oldest warning sign there is, and it's lit up bright. 2. And this one quietly rearranges Dion's face in your memory. Who profits? Not does it work, but who gets paid and when. You think it through. Does Dion make money because you make money, or does Dion make money because you simply show up? You replay the pitch and your stomach drops again, because the answer was sitting in the words the whole time. Get in early, bring somebody, they close it Friday. If the person pitching you gets paid whether or not you win, a cut, a referral, a bonus for every head you drag in, he isn't sharing an opportunity with you. He is the opportunity and you're the raw material. Marcus doesn't dress it up. When the payout comes from the next guy joining and not from the thing actually making anything, you already know. 3. What's the real downside? In dollars out loud before anyone's allowed to say the upside. Nobody runs this one because the upside is the fun part and the downside is homework. So you do the homework. Worst case, the $2,300 is gone, all of it. The car evaporates. And here's the rule Marcus learned by breaking it. Never put in money you can't afford to lose. And at 19 with $2,300, that number is zero. Not because you're broke, because the cash isn't the asset yet. Time is the asset. Lose the $2,300, and you don't just lose $2,300, you lose the decades that $2,300 was supposed to quietly become, and that's a far uglier figure. 4 is barely a question, more a sniff test. Why the rush? And you already know this one, don't you? You knew it at the table and looked away. The Friday, the last chance. The clock that was never about the deal and always about your pulse. A real opportunity survives a night's sleep. This one was engineered specifically so you couldn't get one. Quick, honest aside, because I have to ask, the last sure thing someone rushed at you, did you run any of these 4 before you answered? Most of us didn't. That's not a scolding. That's just the bill. Okay, back to the kid on the bed. You set the pen down and read what you've got. Same fog 4 questions later, and the fog does the thing it never did before. It takes an edge, a shape. Too good to be true fails. Who profits fails badly. Real downside, your entire net worth riding on something you can't say in a sentence. The rush manufactured 4 for 4. And here's what Marcus was really teaching. Underneath the questions, you never once had to know the future. You didn't call a crash. You didn't outsmart anyone. You just looked on purpose with a method, and the deal came apart under honest light. Not because you're clever, because you finally asked instead of felt. You can't predict the future. You can refuse the deals built to rush you. And the sure thing, seen through 4 honest questions instead of a warm grin, stops looking like a door out. It starts looking like Marcus's cold Thanksgiving, which means Friday was never a deadline. Friday's just a Friday, and you're about to do the thing at that table that 19-year-olds almost never manage. Friday. Same folding table, same pizza grease, same warm certainty in the air, and except it doesn't reach you now, and Dion senses it before you've opened your mouth. That's what running the questions does. Once the thing has a shape, you can't unsee it. You walk in already decided, and the room reads it off you like weather. So, Dion says, you in? You say the line you came to say. I'm out, not for me. Not no forever, not a speech. You don't call it a scam. You don't actually know that, and Marcus was firm on this. You're not the fraud squad. You're just a guy with $2,300 and 4 questions the deal couldn't survive. So you say the smaller, truer thing. I can't explain it back to you in 1 sentence, so I'm not putting everything I have into it. That's it. Which is, now that you hear it out loud, the most grown sentence of your life so far, and it comes out level. And that levelness is the actual prize, not the money you kept, the steadiness. The feeling of standing on a decision you can defend whichever way it breaks, because here's the part nobody tells you. The goal was never to be right. The goal was to choose by a method you can live with, whether the thing goes up or down. If it moons Monday, you can still say I made a sound call with what I had. That's yours to keep. Luck never is. Dion does the arithmetic, the room always does. You're lost, man. A shrug. Somebody makes the chicken noise low, and 2 years ago that sound would have turned you inside out. Now it just lies there, weightless, because the guy making it can't tell an opportunity from a trap any better than you could a week ago. He's just louder about not knowing. Across the table, Marcus catches your eye. No nod, no smile, nothing Dion would ever clock. He just holds it a beat, then goes back to his plate. Now, the part I owe you straight, because the whole thing's a lie without it. I don't get to tell you the deal blew up. Sometimes it doesn't. Let's be honest about the version where Dion gets lucky. The thing runs a few months. Some of the early guys pull real cash out, and there's a Saturday where you're scrolling and there's Dion on a rented jet ski, caption told you, and it lands in your chest like a punch. That's the tax on not yet. You pay it in envy in public while the guy who asked 0 questions does a victory lap in the sun. And you have to sit in that and not flinch because the story isn't finished and you happen to know something about these engines that a jet ski photo can't touch. Because run it forward, a deal that pays the early people out of the late people's money needs late people forever, more each round, and there is no forever supply of people. So it has exactly 1 ending and only the date is a mystery. And when it ends, it doesn't check who meant well. Dion, now all in, having put in his own money and his mother's because winning made him brave, Dion isn't riding this thing. He's lashed to it. The same certainty that reached for you reached for him and pulled him all the way under, because the people most convinced on the way up have the most on board and the least break at the bottom. That's not me predicting. That's just the arithmetic of a machine that only eats while it grows and nothing grows forever. You didn't know which Friday it would be. That's the whole point. You finally understand. You weren't smarter than the deal. You just refused to strap yourself to something you couldn't steer. Not yet was the highest return decision you ever made, and it returned nothing you could post. It returned an account that's still yours, a car that still happens, a Thanksgiving that stays warm. The decade just forked at that folding table. One of you chose with open eyes. One of you chose with a grin, and the distance between those two roads is about to get very, very wide. 10 years. That's the honest unit for a call like this. Not the Monday after, not the jet ski Saturday, the decade, because that's the only frame long enough for the math to finish. So here you are at 29. And fair warning, as a highlight reel, it's a letdown. There's no jackpot. Nobody films the guy who said, "Not for me," at a folding table. What there is, an account that grew the slow, dull, unspectacular way because the $2,300 that didn't die at 19 went into a plain broad market index fund and then just sat. Compounding, doing the one quiet trick money does when you leave it alone and give it enough time. You look it up once, idly, half expecting to feel clever, and instead you feel almost nothing, which is the correct response. Because the number isn't dramatic. Over the long haul, a broad slice of the US stock market has returned somewhere around 10% a year on average, closer to 6 or 7 once you strip out inflation, which, run through the old shortcut where 72 divided by your return gives you the doubling time, means real money roughly doubles every decade or so of just being left alone. No genius required. You did nothing exciting on purpose thousands of days in a row, and the boredom paid. But the freedom was never the number in the account. It's quieter than that, and it took you years to even see it. The freedom is that not one of those 10 years went to digging out. You don't have a cold Thanksgiving of your own. You never borrowed off an uncle to cover a yes you regret. You never spent your early 20s, the exact years the money most needed to be left untouched, hauling yourself back to zero. And that's the thing no poster prints. A free life isn't built on the brilliant call you nailed. It's built on the disasters you quietly never had. Freedom is avoided catastrophe, compounded. You aren't rich because you were smart at 19. You're okay because you weren't wiped out at 19, and it turns out not wiped out at 19 is worth more than any single win because it let everything else start on time and stay started. Dion, you don't have to guess about because you still talk now and then. The deal did what those deals do. The date was the only mystery, and the date arrived. He's mostly fine these days, working it off. There's a version of him that's almost grateful in the same tired way Marcus was grateful, and honestly, the two of them would have a lot to say to each other if pride ever allowed the conversation. The certainty still shows up on his face sometimes. It's just quieter now, and it costs him something to wear. And the 4 questions, that's the real inheritance, not the account, because it never stops. At 23, a coworker with a can't lose thing. At 26, a stranger in your messages with a screenshot of a curve tilting the right way, last chance, closing Friday, and you laugh out loud alone in your kitchen at how the sentence never changes, not in 10 years, not in 100. Every time the same 4 run now in about 90 seconds, automatic is checking your mirrors before you merge. Too good, who profits? Real downside? Why the rush? You don't get every call right. You don't have to. You just have to not blow the big ones, and 4 questions on the back of a receipt is how you don't. Here's the ending, and it's almost nothing, which is exactly the point. Your phone buzzes on the counter. Someone you half know. A table you're not at. A sure thing with a clock ticking on it. You in? You read it, and you feel precisely none of what 19 felt. No pull, no envy. No small voice asking if passing makes you the coward. You thumb back 4 words, "Not for me, thanks." Set the phone face down beside your coffee and pick the coffee back up before it goes cold. It's a Tuesday, there is nothing else you need to do about it, that's the whole thing. The kid at the folding table could never have set that phone down. This one doesn't even have to think about it. So I'll hand it to you since you're the one holding a phone now. How do you tell a door from a trap before you walk through it? Not after, when the bill's already printing. You've got 4 questions. They fit on the back of anything you've got in your pocket. And if you want more of these, the lessons nobody teaches you until they've already cost you, that's the whole reason this channel exists. To run them out loud now so your 19-year-old self never has to learn them the way Marcus did. Stick around. The next one already has a clock on it. Let me teach you to ignore it.